In a few words, what happened in 2009?
Well, basically what happened in 2009 was that the government of Sri Lanka was absolutely determined to defeat the LTTE militarily. And they went ahead and did so without any consideration of the means that were necessarily employed to defeat the LTTE. So it was a single-minded determination to smash the LTTE as a military force.
There are reports that the government deliberately fired at civilian targets, like hospitals. Do you think attacks on civilians were intentional?
There are some of the allegations that have been made in the panel report that was given to the Secretary General of the United Nations, as well as in the Channel Fulfilled and in other documents, is that old-fashioned siege tactics were employed. So civilians were bombed out, starved out. The whole idea was to try to make them to move into government-owned territory to isolate the LTTE. The LTTE, in turn, was using them as human shields.
You don't have any doubt?
Absolutely no doubt about the LTTE using civilians as human shields.
Is it fair to say that the Sri Lankan government and the LTTE were responsible for crimes and atrocities during the civil war?
Violence was used by both sides without any compunction. But I will also say one other thing, and that is this, that the LTTE was banned by almost 50-odd countries at the end of the day because it was a terrorist outfit. The standards that need to apply to a government, to a democratically elected government, are very different to the standards that should apply to a non-governmental organization that has been banned and labeled a terrorist organization. Government has obligations, duties, responsibilities, both international as well as national, to protect the human rights of all its citizens, and the governments therefore should be held to that standard.
The main concerns are over the deployment of heavy military operations in populated areas and the horrific treatment of civilians. Why was no distinction made between the LTTE and civilians?
My own feeling is that, my conviction that the 4th Sri Lankan war was not a war against the LTTE. If it were a war against the LTTE, there would have been no problem. It became a war against Tamil civilians.
I strongly believe this was not a war against the LTTE, because LTTE is a guerrilla or a kind of, the Sri Lankan state is a terrorist organization, and it's located in certain places, and then it is, but the bombings and the nature of war was taken right into the Tamil population, into the Tamil habitation area.
I was Brigadier General in Jaffna, and I have witnessed churches being bombed where more than 160 people died in one church, St. Peter and Paul. Another church, 39 people died, St. James Church. So as Brigadier General, I was a witness to these things. So I opened my mouth and gave it to the media, and I have become an irritant to the Sri Lankan government, and that's why I am living in exile in Europe. Because stand for truth that costs you life. What has happened for Sri Lanka is a real case study that in the modern world, after 2 world wars, a genocide could happen in a different form, not like the Rwanda genocide or the Armenian genocide, but this is a slow process of genocide. It starts from 1949, a linguistic genocide, a cultural genocide, educational genocide, and then it escalates and brings to 2009 an open massacre of people. Therefore, this genocide is unique. It has to be studied, and the world has a responsibility to call for accountability of these crimes.
The LTTE has been responsible in the past for targeting civilians, with suicide attacks in the south and ethnic cleansing in the north. What was its involvement in this situation?
I would say, LTTE has been itself, and its cadres themselves have been responsible for blatant violation of humanitarian laws. I think where the distinction lies here, it's the responsibility of the state to ensure respect for everybody's human rights and fundamental freedoms. And the Sri Lankan security forces not only failed to ensure that they also perpetrated same offences. And at the end of the day, there was no difference, and it has been for a long time, between the LTTE and the Sri Lankan army.
Did the LTT intentionally put the lives of civilians at risk?
Oh yeah, that.
It was part of a strategy.
The civilians, as far as both sides were concerned, were in the way. They were instruments to be used to achieve the ultimate objective. During the war, in those last days of the war, last years of the war, the government